I should have been playing Dark Souls, but I got caught up in the John Rand Invitational over on the One Credit Classics Discord, which for July was on Columns on the Mega Drive. Challenge there being arcade mode, easy, top score wins. So bye bye to Dark Souls, hello to Shiny Gems. See, I figured this would be a good challenge for me, a good fit. See, I love me some Tetris. Bit of Puyo Puyo as well, but Tetris is my jam. Did I just say jam? Oh Christ, I'm 42, what am I doing? I like Tetris. Only thing is, mate, this is Columns. Thing with Tetris is that it's a perfect game. Right, it is. It's a perfect puzzle game. There's this theory in psychology that the human mind can cope with a max of, like, say, 7 things at once. That's being ideas or concepts or whatever. But how many Tetris shapes are there?
7!
7. It just fits with your mind perfectly. And the consistency of those shapes is key. At any point you have a good idea what is coming next, even beyond what's in the coming next box in the corner. Columns, however, is a whole other kettle of puzzle blocks. Columns pieces are even more consistent. Each block is a vertical stack of 3 gems. They might be different colours, they might all be the same, but it's always 3 gems stacked vertically on top of each other. You can't rotate them like you can with the shapes in Tetris, but you can swap the positions of the gems in the stack. Simple. Your goal in Columns is to match 3 of the same colour gems in a row. That's either up, down or diagonally. Again, simpler than Tetris. You're not worrying about making a complete line from one side of the play area to the other. It's just about getting 3 or more colours in a row. Okay? What happens when you match 3? The gems vanish, then gravity takes over, and any gems above that fall down and fill the space. Once again, different to Tetris, where the leftover gaps stay there, taunting you until you can fill them in with the right shape. And that gravity effect can set off combos. So this clear causes other matches and so on and so forth. Because, as the attract mode says, this brings the juice. Right. Let's just do a quick word on the art style. I mean, like, ancient Greek? Yeah. I guess because Tetris had that Russian aesthetic, Sega went for Greeks because Greek columns, because the blocks are arranged in columns. I mean, of course they still chucked in that gnarly surfer dude talk because it's the late 80s. I mean, it's just weird. It's just well weird. Anyway, on the surface, Columns look to be an improvement on Tetris, or an evolution, shall we say. Streamlined shapes, colours, combos. That's how I approached it for the John Rand Invitational, and boy oh boy was that the wrong approach. The first thing is those gems. Those gems. Playing it in the endless mode on default easy settings gives you 3 colours of gems, but in arcade, even on easy, you have 6 colours. Factoring in that in each column you have 3 gems that could be any one of those colours, that's like, 216 possible combinations of blocks that could be getting thrown at you, making it very difficult to plan ahead. It's much easier to be surprised by a block in columns or get stuck, as that one combination of colours that you need just doesn't drop. And that's just with placing the first few blocks, but then the complexity increases. In Tetris you have one thing to think about: will that block fit there? No, there. Or maybe there. That's it really, that's your one decision into making Tetris. With Columns there's a touch of where will it fit, but also there's what colour are the gems? Does that match up with anything? Where does it match? Do I need to move the gems in the stack? Is that the best place to put it? And you may ask yourself, how did I get here? And all this is in a much more condensed play area, at least in the arcade mode. Look, let's do a proper, scientific, side-by-side comparison like it's how-to or something. We'll look at the Game Boy Tetris, as that's what Columns is up against at the time. Now here the playfield is around 18 rows high, whereas in Columns it's 13. And with the column shapes, it only takes 4 stacks to get near the top of the well, so the shapes drop much quicker, narrowing the time you have to make a decision before they land. It's also narrower, so it takes longer for the Tetris matrix to fill up. And yes, it is called Matrix, as that's what it says in the Tetris guidelines that define what Tetris is. It does. Go and have a look before you call me a liar, because that makes you a liar because my pants are not on fire. Now this means in columns things can go very wrong very quickly, with less time to get yourself out of trouble. Something on the surface that looks like a simple idea, it's a very dense, tricky thing to play. And then you factor in the speed. Like most puzzle games, as you progress through levels the speed increases, but the speed increase here isn't consistent. It isn't the slow ramp up that you get with Tetris, as defined in the Tetris guidelines. With columns it goes up and down, like around level 5 it slows down a bit and then it speeds back up again. All of this isn't game breaking, and columns remains playable, but it's almost like it's playable despite itself, you know what I mean? It puts up all these barriers to the player who has to fight through all this stuff to try and play the game, especially in the arcade mode. It also goes without saying that this game doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are a lot of other games that appeared in the wake of Tetris, especially Game Boy Tetris. Columns dropped in 1990, and so did Dr. Mario and Clax. The year after was Puyo Puyo. Each had a similar take, and each, whisper it, is probably a better game than Columns. Or at least, they put up less barriers than Sega's Gemfest put up in front of their players. It quickly felt like Columns was a bit of an evolutionary dead end for the puzzle games, as other franchises soon superseded it. Dr. Mario was there, then Puyo Puyo took over, then Puzzle Fighter, also Puzzle Bubble, kind of? It's upside down, but yeah. These, alongside with Tetris, became the popular franchises in the genre. Columns had a couple of sequels and spin-offs, but that was it. Well, kinda. Because of course there was another gem matching game that did pretty okay for itself, Bejeweled. The irony here is that Bejeweled didn't copy Column. It was based on a Russian MS-DOS game called Sharika, or rather, according to their GDC speech, an early online clone version called Color Game.
And most recently, at dinner 2 nights ago, when we mentioned that we did Bejeweled, the waitress's first response was, "Oh yeah, like that was a ripoff of Columns, right?" And I hadn't thought of that, but it kind of is. Although Columns was, you just had a block of 3 pieces that fell down a la Tetris, and you could sort of shift the position of the gems in there. So yeah, I'm sure it had some influence on the whole genre, but it was not the game that we were conscious of as an influence. And of course, some academic writers have gone on to create entire family trees of all the match 3 games that influenced Bejeweled and then were influenced from there, which I found really fascinating because I hadn't heard of any of them. I'm quite curious to check out Panel de Pon at some point, but it wasn't a conscious influence. I can tell you who we actually ripped off Bejeweled from. And this was because John Vici one day came to us and said, "Well, what should we do?" And he said, "I found a cool game." And he showed it to us. And it was called Colors Game. And it was a terrible game. It was an awful game. And we told John, "This is stupid. What are you talking about?" And he said, "No, you got to play it. It's kind of cool." And so we played it for a little bit, and we thought, well, no, it's not cool. He said, "But the mechanic is cool." And we said, well, I don't know.
It's still a match 3 game, only the field is already full. With match gems vanish like columns, more drop in to fill up the space until you can't clear any more. This game was huge. Huge. Like a massive success that was only beaten by Candy Crush, ripping that game off. So now Columns has the indignity of being in the shadow of a game that didn't even copy it, except for the fact they both have gems in it. It's not enough that Tetris and the other matching games did it better than Columns. Somebody else did it better, wearing its trousers. I came second in the John Randall Invitational, by the way. Got a pretty decent score. Didn't break 100,000, but yeah, got there in the end. Lord knows how, but I got there in the end.